She thought she was just a waitress. But one sentence, spoken in a forgotten Sicilian dialect, exposed the bloodline the Mafia had been hunting for decades. Imagine greeting a stranger, and finding out your words just awakened a Mafia war. This is the story of the girl whose voice changed everything. Hold on before we begin, drop your country or city below. It's amazing seeing all of you from around the world. Myra Romano had worked many strange events during her 2 years as a part-time waitress, but nothing compared to the Fifth Avenue Crystal Gala. The building itself looked like a palace, marble floors, chandeliers that glowed like frozen stars, and guards everywhere wearing black suits with the cold expression of people who never smiled. This place is another world, Myra whispered to herself as she walked through the staff entrance, holding her catering apron. Her co-worker, Jada, nudged her. Girl, this is not a world. This is a danger zone. If you value your life, your future, or your kneecaps, stay invisible. Myra raised an eyebrow. Invisible? Why? Jada gave her a look like it should be obvious. You haven't heard. The Lucchesi family is hosting this gala. The Luccheses. As in Manhattan's royal family of crime. Those people don't play. Myra blinked. Oh. Wow. She knew of the Luccheses. Everyone did. They controlled half the docks, half the shipping routes, and rumor had it half the politicians in the city. The newspapers called them a legacy family, which was a polite way of saying they do illegal things, but nobody can stop them. They invited over 300 elite guests tonight, Jada added. Politicians, businessmen, models, movie stars. And the Luccheses themselves. Including Adrian Lucchesi. Myra frowned slightly. Who's Adrian? Jada froze mid-step, her eyes wide. You don't know Adrian Lucchesi? Myra shrugged. Should I? He's the heir. The next boss. The scary one. Jada lowered her voice dramatically. People say he once stared at a man so coldly, the guy confessed to a crime nobody even knew happened. Myra laughed. That can't be real. Jada crossed her arms. Listen, just don't look him in the eyes. Don't talk to him. Don't breathe near him. Don't. Okay, Myra interrupted. I'll do my job. That's it. She said the words confidently, but inside, her stomach twisted. She needed the money desperately. Her mother's cancer treatments weren't cheap, and every extra dollar mattered. She couldn't afford to lose this job or make a mistake. The catering manager, a stiff man named Lyle, clapped his hands. Uniforms straight. Hair tied back. No talking to guests. No eye contact with the hosts. You serve drinks, smile politely, and disappear. Myra tightened her ponytail and grabbed a silver tray of champagne glasses. Her palms felt a little sweaty. She took a deep breath and walked into the main ballroom. The moment she stepped through the door, the place seemed to swallow her whole. Music drifted through the air, soft, elegant violin. People glided around the room in shimmering gowns and tailored suits. The golden light from the chandeliers hit their jewelry and created a glittering sea of wealth. Myra moved through the crowd with her tray, trying not to stare too much. She caught glimpses of famous faces, actors she'd seen in movies, CEOs she'd only seen on billboards, and elegant women who looked like they walked out of magazines. Champagne? Myra said softly as she approached a group. One woman took a flute with a polite smile. Another snapped her fingers impatiently when Myra's tray was a second too slow. Keep moving, Lal whispered sharply behind her. Don't linger. Myra nodded and continued. After about 20 minutes of circulating the room, her nerves began to settle. She was starting to feel less overwhelmed, more focused, until everything changed. A rippling hush suddenly moved across the ballroom like an invisible wave. People stopped talking. Some lowered their heads. Some straightened their posture. The atmosphere turned cold. Myra froze mid-step. What's happening? She whispered. Jada, passing by her side, muttered quickly, he arrived. Who? But the answer walked into the room before Jada could speak. Adrian Lucchesi. He stood at the entrance wearing a sleek black suit, not flashy, but sharp enough to cut glass. He had dark hair, neatly combed back, strong eyebrows, and eyes so piercing they seemed almost unnatural, cold, intelligent, unreadable. He scanned the room with quiet authority, and people stepped aside effortlessly, as if clearing a path was instinctive around him. Beside him walked an older man with silver hair, Antonio Lucchesi, the patriarch. He moved slowly, leaning on a cane, but his presence was even heavier than Adrian's. The room seemed to bend around him. Myra swallowed hard, gripping her tray tightly. She kept her head down, staying near the wall. But then, Antonio Lucchesi turned and walked straight toward her. Her heart nearly stopped. "No, no, no," she whispered, panic rising. Why her? She was nobody. She didn't want attention. She didn't want trouble. Jada's warning repeated in her mind. Stay invisible. But it was too late. The old man was already in front of her. "Ragazza," he said, staring at her with narrowed eyes. "Where is the sparkling water?" Myra blinked. He hadn't spoken in normal Italian. He had used an old Sicilian dialect. A difficult one. A rare one. One spoken mostly in remote villages. Her grandmother's dialect. Without thinking, without planning, Myra replied automatically. "In un vasoio diverso, signore. Posso portarlo subito," said Isidora. "It is on another tray, sir. I can bring it immediately if you wish." The room went silent. People stopped breathing. Adrian's head snapped toward her. His expression changed, not fear or anger, but something sharper. Suspicion. Calculation. Shock. Antonio's cane tapped the floor once. "Ripeti," he demanded quietly. "You speak the old tongue?" Myra swallowed. "My grandmother taught me." "And your grandmother, what is her name?" Myra hesitated, suddenly unsure why this mattered. "Maria Romano," she answered softly. The effect was immediate. Antonio stiffened. Several nearby guests murmured nervously. Adrian took a step closer, eyes locked on her face as though seeing her for the first time. "Romano?" Adrian repeated. "Did you say Romano?" "Yes," Myra whispered. "Why? Is something wrong?" Antonio leaned closer, his voice low and tense. "What village is your grandmother from?" "Santa Lucia. A small place in Sicily." Antonio inhaled sharply. "It cannot be," he murmured. "A Romano girl, here?" Adrian stepped beside his father, his voice calm but cold. "Father. Perhaps this is a coincidence." Antonio shook his head. "There are no coincidences." Myra felt the air grow heavy. Her stomach twisted. Her hands shook. Lyle suddenly rushed forward. "Sir. Apologies. The waitress is new, she doesn't understand." Antonio raised a single finger. Lyle shut up instantly. The patriarch looked Myra up and down. Not threatening, just intensely observant. "Come," he said. Myra flinched. "Come where?" "To speak privately." "Oh, sir, I'm working, and..." Adrian stepped in front of her, blocking her path with one smooth motion. "My father is not making a request. He is giving an instruction." Myra's heart pounded. The tray trembled in her hands. And that was the moment she realized. Her life had just permanently changed. Myra followed the Luccheses into a quiet hallway behind the ballroom, her hands still shaking slightly. Every step felt like walking deeper into a tunnel she couldn't escape. Antonio Lucchesi walked slowly, leaning on his cane. Adrian walked beside him like a silent shadow, tall, calm, dangerous. When they reached a private lounge room, Adrian opened the door for his father and then shut it behind Myra with a soft click. It felt like the walls themselves were listening. Antonio sat down in a large leather chair and gestured for Myra to stand in front of him. Adrian remained near the door, arms crossed, watching her closely. "Your surname is Romano," Antonio said slowly. "Yes," Myra replied. "And your grandmother?" "Maria Romano from Santa Lucia?" "Yes." "And she taught you the dialect of the mountain villages?" "Yes." Antonio leaned forward, his eyes bright with something Myra couldn't read. "Then tell me, Ragazza, do you know who your ancestors were?" Myra shook her head. "No. My grandmother didn't talk much about the past. Adrian raised an eyebrow slightly but said nothing. Antonio sighed deeply, as if a heavy memory had settled on his shoulders. I knew a Romano once. Many years ago. Myra hesitated. My grandfather? No. Antonio's eyes sharpened. Your great-grandfather. Her breath caught. You knew him? I knew of him, Antonio corrected. Everyone in Sicily did. The Romano family was special. Myra frowned. Special how? Antonio exchanged a glance with Adrian, who gave a subtle nod as if telling him to continue. The Romano family, Antonio said, controlled trade routes. Very important ones. The kind of routes people would kill for. I don't understand, Myra said quietly. My grandmother lived in a small apartment in Queens her whole life. She worked in a bakery. She didn't control anything. Antonio's expression softened just a little. Your grandmother ran from her past. She chose a peaceful life. But her bloodline did not disappear. Myra shifted uncomfortably. Sir, I think you're mistaken. My family isn't rich or important. We don't have anything people want. Adrian finally spoke, his deep voice cutting gently through the air. People like us always want something, he said. You may not know what you carry, but that does not mean it is worthless. Myra's throat tightened. She glanced between the two men, wishing she understood what was happening. Antonio asked, Child, do you still have anything from your grandmother's family? Old letters? Journals? A book? A keepsake? Myra blinked. Well, she gave me a journal before she got too sick to write. I thought it was just recipes and poems. Adrian's expression sharpened. Just recipes? Yes, Myra said. Why is that important? Antonio sat back slowly, trembling slightly. Because the Romano family never wrote recipes. They wrote codes. Myra stared. Codes? Maps, coordinates, messages, Antonio said slowly. Hidden in plain sight. Their secrets were disguised as family journals. Myra felt dizzy. Are you saying my grandmother gave me something dangerous? Antonio hesitated. Possibly. Perhaps even priceless. Myra shook her head. This doesn't make sense. Why would my grandmother keep something like that? Why wouldn't she tell me? Adrian responded before Antonio could. Because the less you know, the safer you are. I'm not safe now, Myra whispered. Adrian's eyes softened just a little. No, he said. You are not. A long silence filled the room. Myra finally gathered the courage to ask, what does any of this have to do with me? I'm just a waitress. I'm not part of your world. Antonio exhaled deeply, his gaze turning distant. The last time a Romano girl appeared in my family's life, it changed everything. What do you mean? Antonio looked straight into Myra's eyes, his voice quiet but firm. Your great-grandfather and my father once swore a blood oath. A promise between the Romano and Lucchesi families. A bond that time did not erase. Myra's mouth went dry. Blood oath. Adrian stepped closer, his expression unreadable. A promise between two powerful families. A promise that was never fulfilled because the Romanos vanished. Myra shook her head fiercely. No. That's impossible. My family is normal. My grandmother isn't part of anything like that. Antonio continued gently, your grandmother hid you from all of this. That was her choice. But a name is a name. A bloodline is a bloodline. But why now? Myra asked, voice trembling. Why is this happening today? Antonio tapped his cane. Because somebody saw you. Who? Someone at the gala recognized the dialect. Recognized your answers. Recognized your surname. Antonio's voice lowered. And they made a phone call. To whom? Myra whispered. Adrian answered, his tone darkening. To the Virelli family. The name hit the room like a dropped bomb. Even Myra had heard it before. The Virellis were the Lucchese's biggest rivals, known for their ruthlessness. They know? Myra asked, fear creeping up her spine. They know enough, Adrian said. And if they know enough, they will want more. Myra's hands shook. What does that mean? Antonio's expression was grave. It means your life is about to change in ways you cannot imagine. Myra stepped back, anxiety rising. I don't want to be involved in any of this. I just want to work, pay my mom's hospital bills, and go home. Adrian moved in front of her as if blocking her path. That is no longer possible. Why not? She demanded. He held her gaze for the first time, not with suspicion, not with authority, but with blunt honesty. Because the Virilis will come for you. And once they target someone, they do not stop. Her breath caught. They'll come for me. But why? Antonio answered softly, because you might hold something they have hunted for 70 years. Myra wrapped her arms around herself. This is insane. This can't be happening. Adrian stepped closer, his voice low. I wish it wasn't. But it is. A knock suddenly sounded at the door. Adrian opened it slightly, listened to a guard whisper something, then shut it again with a hardened expression. He turned to Myra. They have your grandmother. The room spun. Myra felt her knees weaken. Her heart shattered. No, she whispered. No. That's not possible. She's at home, she's safe, she's. Adrian shook his head once, gently but firmly. We just received confirmation. The Virilis found her first. Myra collapsed into the nearest chair, tears filling her eyes. Antonio leaned forward, voice firm yet sympathetic. Child, listen to me. We will get her back. But we must act quickly. Myra looked up, trembling. Why would they take her? She's old. She's sick. She can't help them. Adrian answered, because they want you. And they believe she knows how to make you come to them. A tear slid down Myra's cheek. Then I'll go. I'll give them whatever they want. Just don't let them hurt her. Adrian crouched in front of her, meeting her eyes with a seriousness that quieted the room. If you go to them now, he said softly, they will kill you. And then they will torture your grandmother for answers she does not have. Myra covered her face, shaking. What am I supposed to do? Antonio spoke with the weight of generations in his voice. You must trust us. Myra felt Adrian gently place a hand on her shoulder. We will bring your grandmother back, he promised. No matter what. Myra looked between the two men, the feared patriarch and his cold, dangerous, powerful son. She realized she had stepped into a world she never knew existed. And there was no way out. Not anymore. The world felt blurry as Myra sat in the private lounge, her pulse crashing in her ears like ocean waves during a storm. Her grandmother, her fragile, gentle grandmother, had been taken by dangerous men. She could hardly breathe. Adrian Lucchesi spoke quietly into his phone near the window, voice low but firm, issuing commands Myra didn't understand. His body was tense, shoulders rigid, jaw sharp. His entire presence radiated danger. Antonio Lucchesi watched Myra carefully. You must calm yourself, the old man said softly. Panic is the enemy of clarity. Myra wiped her eyes with shaky fingers. How am I supposed to be calm? They took my grandmother. She's sick. She can't even walk without help. She is alive, Antonio said. If they wanted her dead, they would not have taken her. They want leverage. And leverage lives. His voice held a cold logic that Myra found both terrifying and strangely comforting. Adrian put his phone away and walked toward them. Myra could feel a shift in the air, the kind that made every instinct scream danger. They're moving fast, Adrian said. The Virilis didn't waste a second. Someone inside this gala reported Myra the moment she spoke the dialect. Who? Myra whispered. We don't know yet, Adrian replied. But we will. Antonio tapped his cane. What do they want? Adrian's stare darkened. They think she knows something. Think she carries something. You mean the ledger? Myra asked. Adrian shook his head. They don't know what the ledger is. They only know that the Romanos vanished with something valuable decades ago. They believe your grandmother passed it to someone. They assume it's you. But why? Myra cried. I didn't even know any of this until 20 minutes ago. Antonio gave her a long, searching look. Your ignorance does not protect you. If anything, it makes you more vulnerable. Those who know too little are just as dangerous as those who know too much. A guard suddenly opened the door. "Sir," he said urgently to Adrian. "They're demanding a trade." Myra's heart dropped. "A trade? What do they want?" "You," Adrian replied without hesitation. The room spun again. Myra felt her stomach twist. "Then I'll go," she said immediately. "If it means she's safe, I'll." "No," Adrian said sharply. Myra glared at him. "She's my family. I can't just hide while she's in danger." Thunder cracked in Adrian's voice. "If you go to them, you die. And they will take what they want from your grandmother anyway." Myra's chest tightened painfully. "But I can't do nothing." "You will not be doing nothing," Antonio said. "You will be staying alive." She stared helplessly at the two men, overwhelmed and freezing inside. Adrian stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Listen to me carefully. The Virelis don't take hostages unless they want information. They will want to force something out of your grandmother that she does not have." Myra's voice broke. "She doesn't know anything." "Exactly," Adrian said quietly. "Which means she cannot give them what they want. Which means they will grow frustrated. And frustration makes them dangerous." Myra's blood ran cold. "So what do we do?" she whispered. Adrian reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. He clicked a button. A screen lit up showing a map of the city. "We locate your grandmother," Adrian said. "We intercept. We extract her. And we destroy the Virelli plan before it begins." Antonio nodded approvingly. "Good. Move quickly." Adrian turned toward Myra. "You're coming with me." Her eyes widened. "What? Why? Isn't that too dangerous?" Adrian gave a faint, humorless smile. "Everything is dangerous now. But I need you close. If they try to use your grandmother to bait you, they'll expect you to come running. I'd rather control that instead of reacting to it." Myra swallowed. "So, I'm bait." "You're protected bait," he corrected. "There's a difference." She didn't like the sound of that, but she didn't have any other choice. Her grandmother needed her. "Fine," Myra whispered. "Let's go." Adrian nodded once and opened the door. The hallway outside was already filled with Lucchesi guards. They surrounded her immediately like a wall of walking armor. As they moved through the service corridor, the building seemed to pulse with tension. The gala music still played softly in the background, but it felt miles away. Outside, black SUVs waited with engines running. Adrian helped Myra into the nearest one. His touch was surprisingly gentle if not unexpectedly reassuring. As the doors locked automatically behind her, Myra realized with a jolt. She was leaving her old life behind. And she might never get it back. The SUV tore down Manhattan streets, escorted by two more vehicles, one in front, one behind. Myra sat between two guards, her seatbelt tight across her chest, her hands twisting anxiously in her lap. Adrian sat in the front passenger seat, barking orders into a walkie-talkie. "Sector 5 sweep. Check all eastbound routes. They're not going to risk bridges. They'll stay within Manhattan limits as long as possible." "Copy that," came a voice through the device. Myra stared out the window. The world outside looked normal: pedestrians, traffic lights, neon shop signs, but inside the car, her reality was collapsing. The guard beside her glanced down. "You okay?" Myra forced a nod she didn't feel. Adrian turned around slightly. "We have a lead." Her breath hitched. "Where is she?" "An abandoned textile warehouse on Delancey Street," he said. "It's a common Virelli drop point." Myra gripped the seat. "Is she in danger?" "Yes," Adrian said truthfully. "But not dead." His honesty shook her more than lies would have. A moment later, another guard's voice crackled through the walkie-talkie. "We've hacked into a nearby traffic camera. They brought her in 5 minutes ago." Myra pressed her hand over her mouth to stop herself from crying. "We're almost there," Adrian said. "Calmer now. You need to listen carefully when we arrive." Myra nodded weakly. "When I say get down, you get down. When I say run, you run. When I say stay, you stay. No hesitation." "Understood." "Yes," Myra breathed. "Good." The SUV made a sharp turn and pulled into a dark alley behind the warehouse. Myra looked up at the looming brick building, its windows broken, its walls covered in graffiti. A place of secrets, fear, and silence. The vehicles stopped. The guards moved instantly, forming a protective formation around the SUV. Adrian opened Myra's door. "Stay close," he instructed. She stepped out, legs shaky, heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. The wind was cold in the narrow alley, making her shiver. Adrian pointed to a metal door. They brought her in there. The guards moved stealthily, checking corners, scanning shadows. One guard pressed an earpiece. Thermal scan shows 3 heat signatures inside. One is older, smaller build. Likely the grandmother. Myra felt tears sting her eyes again. "Prepare breach protocol," Adrian ordered. The guards lined up, weapons drawn. "Wait," Myra whispered, suddenly panicking. "What if they hurt her when you barge in? What if they panic?" Adrian turned toward her. "Myra, listen to me," he said quietly. "If we wait, they'll move her again, and then we lose our only chance." She covered her mouth with trembling fingers. "It will be fast," Adrian said. "Precise. Your grandmother will not be touched." He stepped closer without meaning to, instinctively grounding her. "Trust me." Myra locked eyes with him. There was something fierce and steady in his gaze, something that made her believe him despite the storm inside her chest. She nodded. "Let's move," Adrian said. The guards stacked near the metal door. One held a device that Myra didn't recognize. "Charge," Adrian ordered. A soft beep. A flash. The door exploded inward with a deafening bang. Myra screamed and ducked instinctively. Adrian grabbed her arm, pulling her behind him as the guards rushed inside. "Down," he ordered. She crouched, heart hammering, as gunfire cracked through the air. "Clear. Left corner. Target down." Myra couldn't see anything from behind Adrian's tall frame, but she heard every terrifying sound. Her whole body shook. Then, "All clear." Adrian stepped forward, pulling Myra with him. "Come." Quickly. Inside, the warehouse was dim and dusty, the air thick with the smell of rust and gasoline. And in the far corner, "Nonna!" Myra screamed. Her grandmother sat tied to a chair, trembling and confused, but alive. Myra sprinted across the room, stumbling over debris, and dropped to her knees beside her grandmother. "Nonna," she sobbed, hugging her tightly. "I'm here. I'm here. You're safe." Her grandmother weakly lifted a hand. "Myra. Kara, what is happening?" Myra shook her head, crying harder. "Nothing. You're safe now. You're safe." Adrian approached and knelt beside them. He gently cut the ropes holding the elderly woman's wrists. He said respectfully. "You're going to be okay. We're taking you to safety." Her grandmother looked up at him with frightened eyes. "You are Lucchesi?" "Yes," he said softly. She nodded slowly. "Then we trust you." Myra blinked at her grandmother in shock. "You know them?" Her grandmother swallowed, pain flickering in her expression. "Not them. Their family." Before Myra could ask more, shouts erupted from outside the warehouse. Adrian's eyes snapped upward. "Move." He grabbed Myra's shoulders and shoved her behind a concrete column as more gunfire exploded in the distance. "Virelli backup squad," a guard shouted. Adrian cursed under his breath. They must have expected us. The warehouse windows shattered as bullets hit them. Myra screamed and shielded her grandmother with her body. Adrian crouched beside them. "We have to get out through the back entrance. Now." Guards formed a shield as Adrian lifted Myra's grandmother carefully, carrying her in his arms with surprising gentleness. "Stay close to me," he commanded Myra. They sped toward a back stairwell, bullets slicing the air, ricocheting off metal beams. A guard opened the back door. "Exit clear. Move," Adrian ordered. They bolted outside. Another SUV screeched into the alley, doors swinging open. Adrian loaded Myra's grandmother into the back seat, then pushed Myra inside next to her. He climbed in after them. "Go." The SUV shot forward just as another wave of gunfire erupted behind them. Myra clutched her grandmother, shaking uncontrollably. Adrian turned to her, his voice low and steady. "You did well." Myra stared at him with tears streaming down her face. "They would have killed her." "Yes," Adrian said quietly. "And they still might try." She swallowed, terrified. "Why? Why us? Why now?" Adrian didn't look away. "Because your name, Romano, just started a war." The SUV sped across Manhattan, sirens in the distance, horns blaring as the convoy cut through traffic. Inside, the dim interior lighting cast a warm glow on Myra's grandmother, who now rested against Myra's shoulder, exhausted but alive. "Myra, are you all right?" her grandmother whispered weakly. Before Myra could answer, Adrian looked back from the front seat. "She's safe. You're safe. But we need to move fast." Myra swallowed hard. Her pulse was still pounding in her ears from the attack. The world had become sharp and frightening, every shadow suspicious, every sound loud. Her grandmother's voice trembled. "This is why I hid everything. This is why I never told you." Myra looked at her in shock. "Nonna, you know what this is about." Her grandmother closed her eyes. "I was hoping the past would stay buried." Adrian leaned forward. It didn't. The SUV pulled into an underground parking garage that resembled more of a bunker than a civilian building. Layers of security surrounded the elevator leading up. 2 guards helped Myra's grandmother out gently. Adrian held Myra's arm, keeping her close as they entered. The atmosphere inside the safe house was calm but tense. Thick metal doors. High ceilings. Silent halls. Everything screamed protection. Inside the main room, with its warm lighting and modern furniture, Myra finally felt her body begin to settle. She sat next to her grandmother on a soft sofa, holding her hand tightly. "Water," Adrian ordered a guard, who rushed to bring it. Her grandmother took a sip, then turned to Myra with sad, tired eyes. "You must listen carefully now," she said. Myra nodded, heart tightening. Her grandmother reached for Myra's backpack, the one she had brought from work, and opened the front pocket. She pulled out a worn leather journal, tied with a faded ribbon. Myra blinked. "You gave me that weeks ago. You told me it was family recipes and little poems." Her grandmother shook her head slowly. "That was only what I wanted you to believe." Adrian crossed his arms, studying the journal with intense interest. "Open it." Myra hesitated, then slowly untied the ribbon. Inside, on the first page, was her grandmother's neat handwriting. "Cannoli alla nonna, a simple recipe." Myra flipped the page. Another recipe. Another poem. Then, halfway through the book, she noticed something strange. The words weren't in Italian. They weren't even in English. They were coded symbols, marks, strange lines, and circles connecting to form maps she didn't recognize. Myra stared. "Nonna, what is this?" Her grandmother sighed deeply. "That, my dear, is a cipher. A code used only by the Romano family for generations. It hides secrets that cannot be written in plain words." Adrian stepped closer. "This is the ledger." Her grandmother nodded. Myra's heart raced. "Ledger? You mean like an accounting book?" Adrian shook his head. "Not exactly. Not in your family's case." He took a seat across from them, his expression serious. "Your ancestors were not ordinary merchants. They controlled hidden shipping routes that connected Sicily to New York in ways the police could never trace. These routes were worth fortunes." Myra's mouth dropped open. "My grandparents. Criminals." "No," Adrian said firmly. "They were innovators. They knew the sea and the land better than anyone. They transported goods long before the Mafia existed here. Both legal and, occasionally not." Her grandmother nodded sadly. "When war broke out, everything changed. Your great-grandfather entrusted this ledger to me. And I hid it away. And now the Virelis want it," Adrian added. Myra rubbed her temples, overwhelmed. "Why?" Adrian leaned forward, hands clasped. "Because the ledger doesn't only have roots. It has contacts. Codes. Safe houses. Old debts. Hidden ports. Even coordinates to offshore caches." Myra felt dizzy. Caches of what? Gold, Her grandmother whispered. Supplies. Money. Things hidden during wartime. Adrian gave a grim smile. If the Virelis get the ledger, they gain access to everything. They'd become more powerful than any family in New York. Myra looked down at the journal. It suddenly felt heavier than the world itself. I didn't know, she whispered. You weren't supposed to, her grandmother said. I wanted you free. Unburdened. Adrian's voice softened, almost apologetic. But the Virelis believe you know everything. They're convinced you're the key. Myra clenched her jaw. I'm not. I didn't even know this existed. That doesn't matter, Adrian said. They won't stop. A sudden knock at the door made Myra jump. A guard entered. We have security footage from the warehouse. Adrian stood. Show it. The guard placed a tablet in Adrian's hand. Myra watched his face as he scrolled through the footage. His expression changed sharply, anger flashing like lightning. Myra tensed. What is it? What do you see? Adrian played a short clip. A man walked through a side door at the warehouse. He wasn't wearing a mask. He looked around cautiously, then spoke to someone off camera. Myra's heart dropped. The man in the video was her uncle. Uncle Leo. The uncle who disappeared years ago. The one who never visited. The one her grandmother always avoided talking about. No, Myra whispered, horrified. No, that can't be right. Uncle Leo he wouldn't do this. He loved my mom. Her grandmother's face turned pale. My brother, she whispered, voice cracking. Oh God. Leo. Adrian studied the video coldly. He's the one who told the Virelis about you. Myra shook her head violently. No. You're wrong. Adrian met her eyes. I wish I were. Her grandmother's hands trembled. He betrayed us, again. Myra stared at the video in disbelief at the familiar walk, the familiar face, the familiar nervous habits. Her uncle. A traitor. The truth hit her like a physical blow. The Virelis hadn't found her grandmother at random. Her uncle had delivered her. Tears blurred Myra's vision. Why would he do this? Why? Adrian sighed, rubbing his forehead. People don't betray family for small reasons. He either hates your grandmother or wants something she has. The ledger, Myra whispered. Adrian nodded. Exactly. Her grandmother closed her eyes, whispering as if to herself. He always wanted more. He always hated our family's choices. He never forgave the past. Myra felt caught between shock and heartbreak. Her family's secrets were deeper and darker than she ever imagined. Adrian stood, muscles tense. We need to move your grandmother again. This safe house is secure but temporary. Once Leo realizes she was rescued, he'll report back. They'll try again. Myra looked up. Where will we take her? A secure medical facility. One only our family knows. Her grandmother looked frightened. Will I be safe there? Adrian kneels beside her. You have my word. Her grandmother nodded weakly. Myra helped her stand. Adrian placed a steadying hand on Myra's back. We move now, he said. Because the Virelis won't stop hunting you. Myra swallowed hard. The ledger, her uncle's betrayal, the hidden past, all of it crashed down on her at once. Her life had become a nightmare she couldn't wake from. The medical facility Adrian brought them to looked nothing like a hospital from the outside, more like an old abandoned office building. But inside, everything was state-of-the-art. Clean corridors. High-tech equipment. Armed security at every exit. Myra's grandmother was taken in for a thorough checkup while Adrian guided Myra to a waiting area. She collapsed onto a chair, overwhelmed. Adrian sat across from her, his expression steady but gentler than usual. Myra, he began, I know today has been horrible. Myra snapped. Terrifying? Unreal? Yes, Adrian admitted. All of the above. She rubbed her face with trembling hands. My uncle, why would he do this? Why help the Virelis? Why betray his own family? Adrian leaned back. Let me tell you something about men like your uncle. Myra looked up, eyes red. Some people, Adrian said quietly, do not want power they earn. They want power handed to them. They want shortcuts. And when they don't get them, they turn bitter, angry, dangerous. Myra swallowed. He hated my grandmother? Possibly, Adrian said. Or perhaps he hated the responsibility the Romano name carried. Or perhaps, the Virilis bought him. Myra looked away, ashamed. But he was kind. He laughed with us. He brought me little gifts. People who betray you don't always look like villains, Adrian said softly. Sometimes they look familiar. Myra felt her stomach twist painfully. Adrian stood. I need to question him. Myra's head snapped up. You found him? He nodded. My men tracked him to a hotel in Midtown. He's already in custody. Myra rose to her feet instantly. I want to see him. Adrian shook his head. No. Not yet. Why? Because he will manipulate you, Adrian said. He will lie. He will twist your emotions. You're too vulnerable right now. I'm stronger than you think, she argued. Adrian stepped closer, his voice firm. This is not about strength. It's about truth. And sometimes, truth hurts more when it comes from someone you loved. Myra faltered. He was right. Before she could respond, a doctor entered the room. Miss Romano, the doctor said, your grandmother is stable and resting. Myra exhaled in relief. She will need to stay here for at least 2 nights, the doctor continued. We've placed her under full protection. Myra nodded. Thank you. The doctor left, and Myra turned back to Adrian. I need to see him, she repeated quietly. Just, to understand. Adrian considered her for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. But I will be with you, he said. And you do not speak unless I tell you to. Understood? Yes, Myra whispered. They walked down a long hallway to a lower floor. Adrian's guards flanked them. A steel door slid open, revealing a dimly lit room. Her uncle sat inside, handcuffed to a metal chair. He looked up when Myra entered. Myra, he said softly. My little star. Her heart cracked in two. How could you, she whispered. His eyes softened. You don't understand, sweetheart. I didn't mean for any of this to. Adrian stepped forward. Don't speak to her like that. Speak to me. Her uncle sneered. Ah. The Prince of Manhattan. Adrian Lucchesi. How polite of you to finally introduce yourself. Cut the games, Adrian said calmly. Why did you betray your family? Her uncle laughed bitterly. Family? What family? The Romanos abandoned me long before I abandoned them. That is a lie, Myra said through clenched teeth. He shook his head. Your grandmother chose her peaceful life. She chose to leave everything behind. But she never offered me the same choice. She kept the ledger from me. She kept the power from me. Because it was dangerous. Myra cried. Because she didn't want anyone corrupted by it. Her uncle slammed his fists against the table. Corrupted. Or chosen. She decided I wasn't worthy. Myra's eyes widened. Is that what this is about? Pride. Her uncle glared at her. You got everything. You were her golden child. She trusted you. But me. I was nothing. Adrian leaned forward. So you sold her to the Virilis? Yes, her uncle said coldly. Because they promised me what she never would, power. Myra stepped back as if slapped. Her uncle stared at her with feverish intensity. Give them the ledger, Myra. Give it to them, and this all ends. Adrian's voice turned ice cold. No. It never ends. They would kill her. Then kill you. Her uncle smirked at Adrian. You think you can stop them? You're not as strong as your father. Adrian stepped closer. You betrayed blood. You betrayed your niece. And you betrayed a dying old woman. Her uncle's eyes flickered. Adrian's final words were a quiet earthquake. You're done. He signaled his guard. Take him. As the guards dragged her uncle away, Myra stood frozen, staring at the empty chair he left behind. Her chest hurt. Her throat burned. Tears pressed painfully behind her eyes. Adrian placed a gentle hand on her arm. Myra, he said softly, you are not responsible for his choices. She didn't answer. She couldn't. Her entire world had cracked open. The past she never knew was now destroying the future she once hoped for. And for the first time, Myra realized. She wasn't just caught in a war. She was part of its cause. The following evening, the tension in New York felt like electricity in the air, sharp, crackling, dangerous. News of the Virelli attack spread quietly through underworld channels, and every major family was watching. Myra stood in the Lucchesi safehouse kitchen, staring at her reflection in the stainless steel refrigerator. Her eyes were puffy from crying, her shoulders tense, her body exhausted. But she wasn't broken. Not anymore. She had survived too much in 24 hours to crumble now. Adrian entered the kitchen silently, carrying a sleek black suit jacket over his arm. He didn't try to smile. But his voice was softer than she expected. "Tonight is the sit-down," he said. Myra nodded without looking away from her reflection. "I know. Every family will be there. They all want answers. They want clarity. They want the ledger," Myra whispered. "No," Adrian said. "They want to know who stands with them and who stands against them." Myra turned at last, meeting his intense gaze. "And you want me there?" Adrian stepped closer, placing the jacket on a chair. "I need you there," he said honestly. "When you declared your bloodline last night, things changed. You're no longer a rumor. You're real. And your presence at this meeting will set the tone for everything that happens next." Myra's breath trembled slightly. "I'm not a leader. I'm not powerful. I'm just a girl who worked in a cafe 3 days ago." Adrian shook his head. "You're a Romano. That alone carries weight none of them expected." He moved beside her, lowering his voice. "But more importantly, you're the only one who can expose the Virelli lie. The lie that started this war." She swallowed. He wasn't wrong. The Virellis wanted power. They wanted the ledger. They wanted total control. And they would crush anyone in their way. Including her. She took a slow, steadying breath. "What do I have to do?" Adrian's eyes softened with something almost like respect. "You stand beside me," he said. "And you show them you're not afraid." Myra straightened her shoulders. "Then let's go." The sit-down was held in a building that used to be a church, but was now a private restaurant reserved for only the most powerful men in the underworld. Armored cars lined the block. Guards stood everywhere. The moment Myra stepped out of the SUV, every head turned toward her. Not because she was beautiful, though she was. But because she was unexpected. A young woman wrapped in danger and mystery. A Romano. The family believed to be extinct. Adrian walked next to her, tall and imposing. His presence pressed against the air itself, warning everyone who dared look too long. Inside, a massive table ran the length of the room. 12 men already sat waiting, heads of the major families. Among them was a man with a sharp nose, thin lips, and eyes like cold slate. Nico Virelli. The man who ordered her grandmother's kidnapping. The man whose men tried to kill Myra. Nico didn't stand. He didn't smile. He didn't blink. "So this is the girl," he said in English, his voice dripping disdain. "The little waitress who suddenly speaks ancient Sicilian." Myra didn't flinch. Adrian, however, placed a hand on the back of her chair, subtle, protective. Myra spoke clearly, her voice steady. "I didn't choose to be here. But I won't run from the truth." Nico laughed coldly. "Truth? Child, you wouldn't know truth if it." Adrian's voice sliced through the air. "Enough." The room quieted instantly. The eldest man at the table, Matteo Donotti, head of the Staten Island families, cleared his throat. "We are here to stop bloodshed," Donotti said. "Not create more." "Nico, explain why your men went after the Romano girl." Nico smirked. "Because she is a liar. There are no Romanos left. Her grandmother was a nobody." Myra felt anger rise in her chest. Adrian crossed his arms. "Your men kidnapped a 78-year-old woman and attempted to murder her granddaughter. We traced your calls. We found your spy. We have audio recordings." Nico waved that away. "Fabrications." His arrogance scraped against Myra's nerves. She stood abruptly, surprising everyone, including Adrian. Why are you so afraid of me? Myra demanded. The room went silent. Nico's expression faltered for the first time. You're nothing, he snapped. A waitress. A nobody with a dusty recipe book. Myra opened her bag and placed the Romano ledger gently on the table. Soft whispers filled the room. Is that? It can't be. Nico leaned forward sharply, eyes widening despite himself. Myra's voice was quiet but strong. This is why they want me dead. This is why they kidnapped my grandmother. Because I didn't even know what this was, but they did. Adrian watched her with controlled pride. Nico sneered. And you think a child like you can control that? You think the Romanos would give something so valuable to their last descendant? Myra cut in. Yes. The shock on Nico's face was unmistakable. Myra continued, you targeted my family. You lied. You said we were nothing. But this ledger proves otherwise. One of the bosses leaned forward. She has courage. Another murmured, and blood we all thought extinct. Nico scowled. She is a danger. Her blood is a threat. That's enough, Donotti said sharply. This meeting is over. But before anyone could stand, the doors burst open. Armed men stormed the room. But they didn't aim at Myra. Or Adrian. They aimed their guns straight at Nico Virelli. FBI. Hands where we can see them. Chaos erupted. The agents forced Nico to the floor. One woman in an FBI jacket stepped forward, showing a warrant. Nico Virelli. You are under arrest for the kidnapping and attempted murder of Elizabeth Romano and Myra Romano. We also have recorded audio of you instructing your men to acquire the Romano ledger by force. Nico's face drained of color. You lying. The agent pressed her boot onto his chest. Save it for the courtroom. As Nico was dragged away screaming, the room remained completely silent. Then, Donotti cleared his throat. The Romano bloodline has been attacked. This cannot stand. Adrian turned toward Myra softly. You did well. Myra exhaled shakily. Is it over? Adrian shook his head. No. But the Virellis lost their leader. And you gained something they never expected. What? Adrian looked directly into her eyes. Power. 2 days later, Myra stood on the roof of the Lucchesi penthouse watching the sun rise over Manhattan. Every breath felt heavy, loaded with the memory of danger and survival. Below her, the city looked deceptively peaceful. But inside her, a storm was brewing. Footsteps echoed behind her. Adrian joined her at the railing. He didn't speak immediately, he just watched the horizon with her, the wind brushing against his dark hair. Finally, he said quietly, your grandmother is recovering well. She's safe for now. Myra nodded slowly. Thank you. For everything. You don't need to thank me. Yes, she insisted. I do. You saved her life. Adrian looked down at the streets far below. I saved her because it was the right thing to do. But also because she matters to you. Something warm flickered in Myra's chest. Silence stretched comfortably between them. Then Adrian reached inside his jacket and pulled out a sealed envelope. We found something, he said. In your uncle's belongings. Myra tensed. What is it? A letter. For you. Her breath caught. She took the envelope with shaking hands and opened it. The handwriting inside was unmistakable, her uncle's sharp, slightly messy scrawl. Myra. You think you know everything. You don't. You think I betrayed the family for greed. I didn't. I tried to save us. The Virellis had something on me. Something that would destroy us all if I didn't obey. I never meant for them to hurt your grandmother. I only wanted power. A chance to be something instead of nothing. You deserve better. But you cannot trust Adrian. His family wants the ledger as much as the Virellis do. Protect yourself. Your mother never told you the truth about our bloodline. She kept secrets too. Go to Palermo. To the vault under the old chapel of Saint Aurelia. The answers are there. Leo. Myra lowered the letter, her heart sinking. Adrian watched her carefully. What did he say? Myra folded the letter slowly. He said you can't be trusted. Adrian didn't flinch. And do you believe him? Myra shook her head. I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. Adrian turned to her, his voice calm, steady. You don't need to trust me. You just need to see the truth with your own eyes. She looked at him sharply. And what truth is that? That your family was never as innocent as you think, Adrian said. And neither was mine. Myra took a step back. What are you saying? I'm saying, Adrian replied, that the Romano and Lucchesi families are connected in ways deeper than this ledger. Ways that began long before you were born. Myra clutched the letter to her chest. My uncle mentioned Palermo. A vault. Something hidden. Adrian nodded. We'll go. Myra blinked. We. Adrian stepped closer. You shouldn't face this alone. And the Virellis have other members. Nico wasn't their only leader. Someone will try again. You are a target until this ends. Myra bit her lip. Why do you care so much? Adrian's eyes softened, dark, sincere, almost vulnerable. Because you didn't ask for any of this, he said. Because you didn't choose this world. And because, despite everything, you're handling it better than most people would. Myra didn't know how to respond. A gust of wind blew her hair across her face. Adrian lifted a hand, hesitated, then gently tucked it behind her ear. Her breath stopped. I'll protect you, he murmured. Not because of your bloodline, but because it's the right thing to do. Myra stepped closer, just enough that she could feel his warmth. For the first time since her life fell apart, she felt safe. But safety didn't last long. A guard burst onto the rooftop, breathless. Boss, urgent news. The Virelli soldiers who escaped last night turned on each other. The family is burning from the inside. Someone leaked their locations. Adrian's eyes narrowed. Someone? Yes, boss, the guard said. An anonymous source. But whoever it is, they're helping us. Myra felt a chill. The guard added, but something else happened. We traced the leak. It came from Sicily. Myra and Adrian exchanged a stunned look. Adrian whispered, the vault. Myra whispered back, the truth. Adrian straightened, already in action mode. Prepare the jet. The guard nodded and ran. Myra folded the letter tightly in her hand. A fire was burning through New York. The Virellis were crumbling. Hidden allies were moving. And the next step, the answers she needed, waited across the ocean. Adrian turned to her one last time. You ready? He asked. Myra held his gaze, fear and determination swirling inside her. Yes, she said. Let's end this. The jet sliced through the night sky as if the world itself had parted to make way for them. Myra sat beside the window, watching New York shrink into a scattering of lights. She wasn't the same girl who had left this city only days ago. She wasn't the shy waitress hiding behind quiet smiles and nervous politeness. She wasn't the terrified victim running from shadows. She was a woman on a mission, a woman carrying the last legacy of a powerful family. Adrian sat across from her, arms folded, watching her with the same intensity he wore during negotiations. The hum of the engines filled the silence between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was steady. Grounding. Couldn't sleep? He asked softly. Myra shook her head. Too much to think about. Your uncle, he guessed. Myra sighed. Him. My mother. The ledger. The vault. The fact that my life has changed so fast, I can barely breathe. Adrian nodded. I know the feeling. She looked up. You do. He gave a small, rare smile. My family, the life I was born into. I never chose it. But I had to become who I am because the world left me no other option. Myra's voice softened. You think the same thing is happening to me? No, Adrian said. Something different is happening to you. What? You're choosing who you become. His words hit her deeply. Before she could respond, the pilot's voice crackled over the speaker. Preparing for landing. Sicily in 10 minutes. Myra's heart thudded. Sicily. The home she'd never known. The soil her grandparents once walked. The birthplace of her family's power. As the jet descended into the island's warm night, Myra felt her pulse quicken. She stepped out onto the tarmac and inhaled deeply. The air smelled like sea salt, citrus, and something older, something ancient. Adrian walked beside her as cars rolled forward to greet them. The chapel of St. Aurelia is about an hour from here. What do you think we'll find? She asked. Truth, Adrian said. Maybe answers. Maybe new problems. But whatever it is, we'll face it together. The word together did something to her chest. They drove through winding roads lined with olive trees, old stone houses, and distant mountains bathed in moonlight. The land felt like a forgotten memory, echoing across generations. When they reached the small village surrounding the chapel, everything was silent except for the whispering wind. The chapel itself was old, ancient, really. Cracked stone walls. Wooden doors scarred by time. Ivy climbing the sides like fingers reaching for the past. Inside, candles flickered in dusty chandeliers. The air felt heavy, sacred. Adrian walked ahead, scanning the shadows carefully. Myra followed slowly, her fingers brushing the rough stone walls as if greeting something that belonged to her. Behind the altar, in a recessed alcove, stood a rusted iron gate. The vault. Her uncle's final message had led her here. Adrian inspected the lock. This hasn't been touched in years. Myra knelt and pulled her grandmother's old ring from her pocket, the one her grandmother said had been passed down for generations. The Romano crest. She lifted it to the lock. The old metal clicked softly. The gate swung inward. Myra's heart leaped into her throat. Inside, she found a long stone room, lined with carved shelves. Dust covered everything. Cobwebs layered the ceiling. But beneath the dirt, something shone faintly. Adrian lit a lantern and stepped inside. Myra followed and gasped. There were documents everywhere. Scrolls. Maps. Ledgers. Letters. Boxes sealed with wax. An entire archive of her family's history. Adrian exhaled in disbelief. This is priceless. Myra approached a wooden table in the center. On top lay a sealed envelope with her name on it. Her name. Myra. Her fingertips tingled as she picked it up. The handwriting belonged to her mother. Hands trembling, she opened the letter. Myra, my love. If you are reading this, then the past has found you. I tried to keep you safe, far from the shadows that swallowed our family. But destiny is stubborn, and blood remembers its own. The Romano legacy is not just power, it is responsibility. We protected people. We kept the balance between right and wrong. We were not criminals. We were guardians. The ledger you carry is more than gold or roots. It is a map of every promise our family ever made. Promise me you will not let greed or fear guide you. Promise me you will build something better. And Adrian Lucchesi, if he is with you, trust him. His family was once tied to ours by oath. He is dangerous, yes, but he is loyal to those he chooses. And he will choose you, if you let him. With all my love. Mama. Myra felt tears burn her eyes. Her mother's voice echoed inside her chest. Her mother had known everything. She had kept secrets not to deceive her, but to protect her. Adrian stepped closer, watching her carefully. What does it say? Myra handed him the letter. He read it slowly, his face darkening at some lines, softening at others. Myra, he whispered. Your mother, she trusted me even before we met. Myra brushed a tear from her cheek. She knew you would help me. Adrian's voice dropped. I would do anything to protect you. She looked up at him, and in that moment, they were no longer heirs or enemies or confused strangers thrown into a storm. They were two people standing at the crossroads of past and future. He stepped closer. She felt the warmth of his breath. His hand brushed her cheek. Myra, he murmured, I won't let anything hurt you again. She leaned into his touch, not because she was weak, but because she finally understood she didn't have to face this alone. They stayed in the vault for hours, gathering documents, scanning records, uncovering the truth of a family lost to history. When they emerged, dawn was breaking over the mountains, bathing the chapel in soft gold light. Myra stood at the door and whispered, Watch me, Mama. I'll make things right. Adrian joined her, standing tall beside her. The new Romano era begins today, he said. No, Myra corrected gently. The Romano and Lucchese era. Adrian smiled, slow, rare, real. And together, they walked into the rising sun. A year later, New York looked different. Or maybe Myra looked different. She stood in the boardroom of Ferraro Lucchese Imports, her new company, a merger between her family's ancient roots and Adrian's modern empire. Tall glass windows stretched from floor to ceiling, showing the city she once feared but now commanded. The room was filled with murmurs from business partners, investors, and former rivals, all of them there because of her. Myra Romano. CEO. Leader. Survivor. Heir to a forgotten dynasty. Her grandmother sat in a wheelchair near the head of the table, healthier and more vibrant than she'd been in years. Her eyes sparkled with pride. My Myra, she whispered in Sicilian. You did what none of us could. Adrian entered the room wearing a tailored black suit, carrying an air of power that made everyone straighten reflexively. But when he looked at Myra, the hardness melted from his expression. Ready? He asked. She nodded. Let's begin. Together, they unveiled their new partnership, a network of legitimate shipping routes spanning Sicily to New York, offering jobs to Sicilian youth, rebuilding old harbors, and donating profits to restore historical sites. They turned a legacy of shadow into a legacy of light. When the meeting ended and everyone left, Myra remained alone at the window, staring down at the city. Memories flickered through her mind like scenes in a film. The gala. The kidnapping. The ledger. Her uncle's betrayal. The Sicilian vault. The truth in her mother's letter. And Adrian always there, in every moment, grounding her. The door opened quietly. She didn't turn. She didn't have to. Adrian walked toward her, stopping only inches behind her. The board is pleased. They should be, Myra said. We turned our families into something better. He smiled softly. Yes. But that's not why I'm here. She raised an eyebrow. No. He stepped in front of her, the early evening sun warming his face. Then he took her hands, something he had done many times, but this time, something felt different. Myra, do you know why our ancestors created the oath between our families? He asked quietly. She blinked. To unite against enemies? No, he said. To unite for each other. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Myra's breath caught. He opened it slowly. Inside was a ring, gold, antique, engraved with both the Lucchese lion and the Romano crest on each side of a white stone. It was beautiful. Old. Powerful. Meaningful. This ring belonged to my great-grandfather, Adrian said. It was meant to be given to the Romano heir when the oath was renewed, but the war tore everything apart. Myra stared at the ring, her heart pounding in her chest. Adrian took a step closer. Myra Romano, he said softly. You brought peace back to a world that only knew war. You carried your family's legacy with grace. You built something better from ashes. His voice lowered to a whisper. And I've fallen in love with you. Her breath stopped. I don't want power without you. I don't want a kingdom without you. I don't want a future without you. He knelt slowly, reverently, and held the ring up to her. Myra, he said, voice steady. Will you marry me? Tears blurred her vision. Her grandmother gasped softly behind them, hands pressed against her mouth. Myra stepped forward, her heart overflowing, and whispered. Yes. Adrian slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had always been waiting for her. He stood, cupped her face in his hands, and kissed her, slowly, tenderly, with the weight of a century of broken promises being healed in that single moment. Her grandmother began to cry. Outside, the city lights flickered like stars. Inside, history rewrote itself. The Romano-Lucchese union was no longer a plan forced by the past. It was a choice, a future, a promise. And it began with a kiss. If this story kept you hooked, imagine what's coming next. Hit like, smash subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the next chapter, you don't want to miss it.